Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening. Good evening, right? Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Real Talk of Real Estate. Host Chris Allen and Mr. Maurice. What up, bro?
What's going on, man?
You shaved? You got
No,
you look like you cleaned up a little bit there, boy.
No, I got a little, just a little shape up the
Okay,
beard.
just knock it down a little bit.
Yeah, I don't shave no more.
You done shaving. Okay. No, I'm gonna keep mine low. I'm gonna try to see how it's happening. I got me some new shades, some new some eyewear.
Okay.
I'm rocking the browns today. You see it?
I see you.
Yeah, you some kind of rock them blacks, but now I think I done switched on. My doctor said try these out, so we're gonna try out the browns today. We're gonna try out the
That's
browns.
what's up.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk of Real Estate. I am your host Chris Allen and my boy Maurice, the bearded realtor, right there in the backdrop. Everything's good.
Let's go.
Let's go. Man. Let's do it, man. We got a good show tonight.
Yeah, man. We got Mr. Roberto coming on. Absolutely, man. Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been talking about this one for a while, so you want to share some information about Mr. Roberto?
Absolutely, man. So Mr. Roberto, originally from Providence, enlisted in the Navy back in '97. This young man moved up the ranks really quickly. Served in Iraqi Enduring Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and then also Operation Iraqi Freedom. So what he did was during one of his tours, he enrolled into the real estate program because he was interested in purchasing homes as an investment.
Okay.
So what he started doing his last duty station, he started buying condos as an investment because he understood that home ownership is better than renting, and it could be a very good vehicle, actually a really good vehicle to long-term wealth, or as we call it nowadays, generational wealth. Absolutely, man. So as became a realtor, he became the go-to guy. So what he did was he had a very unique strategy of how he worked with the military, and he became the top 10% in his office. He's also has a VIP program that 52x his return on investment.
Oh wow!
He's also working on a book right now that kind of highlights the success of that VIP program. So we're going to talk about that too.
Let's talk about it.
So Mr. Roberto enjoys running. He just ran the the Gate River Run.
Sure.
Also golfing, fishing, and he got some major goals that he wants to achieve. And so he's also the team lead for the RP home team. I think that's the name of it. RP home team. So let's give it up for Mr. Roberto.
Let's do it. Man. Welcome.
Thanks, Chris. How you doing, Maurice? How y'all doing? Doing all right?
Doing great, man.
Highly favored over here. How you doing?
I'm blessed as well. I can't complain. Another day above ground is a blessing, right?
Listen, absolutely, man. Above ground. With all that stuff that you got going on, man, you got to be extremely tired. I mean, you running marathons, you writing books.
The running thing's a little older. You know what I'm saying? I'm at the pickleball stage right now where I'm at.
Okay.
But when I get into it, it comes and goes as far as the running craze. I do enjoy running, but it's just been a while. Like one of my goals is to run the New York City Marathon. There's a process for that or whatnot, but I got to get back on that running tip. But definitely enjoy getting out there, especially now I got 2 daughters, and it's our quality time to go out there and play and just have a good time. So I definitely use that to not only stay in shape, but to make sure that I'm staying connected with the family.
I love it.
Absolutely.
How old are your daughters? You said you got 2 daughters. How old?
5 and 8.
Woo.
Yeah, I started late, man. Late. So yeah, but I'm enjoying it. Honestly, this season of my life right now, I've had to kind of stop and reflect and adjust, because sometimes you get real ambitious and it can overshadow what the real priorities in life are. Right. And I had to come to the conclusion that like this is the phase and the chapter of my life, and they are the priority. And home sales are going to come and go, and I'm in this for the long term. As far as real estate goes. But I know that there's going to be a point where I'm not going to be their superhero. That they're going to stop. There's going to be a point. There's going to be a last time they run and give me a hug, and say, "Daddy, we love you," So yeah, I just want to take advantage of all that. So that's why I say no to a lot of things, so I can say yes to them.
Absolutely, man. Take advantage of it now, because once they get older.
Yeah.
What about you guys? You guys got how's your kids?
Yeah, my youngest is 21 and my oldest is 26. So you'll feel what I'm feeling right now. They call you when they call you, and if they want some money or they need something, they'll call you. But
and so I have two boys. I have a 32-year-old son and a 17-year-old son.
Man, I feel it's funny because I hear people like our age say that, and I'm like, man, I'm just starting. It's
a funny thing, man. You were just talking about enjoying those times. I remember my son, my 17-year-old, was real young, and I remember one time we was walking through the mall, and my son, he was like 5 or 6 or something. He was grabbing my hand. And me as a man, I'm like, nah, we ain't holding hands up in this camp. You know what I'm saying? I shook my hand off, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, quit, don't be touchy-feely on me, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then my then wife stopped me. She said, listen, let him do that, because there's gonna come a day that he's not gonna want to grab your hand.
Amen.
And when she said that, man, I immediately went back. Man, I grabbed his hand. I'm like, we walking through this mall, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Man. Those moments are special. Like absolutely. Gone through what I've gone through, like I've allowed myself and I program myself to really take advantage and just appreciate those blessings, those moments like that, those learning opportunities, because those are everything. At the end of the day, those are the things that's gonna reap the rewards,
Absolutely, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Kudos to you, brother.
So Roberto, let's hop into it, man. Let's talk about family now. Let's talk about back in the day when you was in the Navy and decided to go into real estate. Tell us about your thought process and what were you going through in that season of your life that made you decide to hop into real estate.
Yeah. So the military was a blessing. There's two major blessings in my life. One was the United States Navy, and the other one was marrying my wife or convincing her to marry me. So that was the biggest and best closing of my life.
Gotcha.
But the United States Navy was a blessing to me. I know you hear a lot of people, they say, man, I joined the Navy to serve my country, do all these things. And man, I needed the Navy more than they needed me. It was I was lucky to get in. I was just a kid just on the block in this little kind of environment that no one really left. Right.
Wow.
Gotcha.
And I knew that because of the way I grew up before. I was in foster care and I had the most amazing foster parents, and they were upper scale, I guess you could say. And then, I went to go live with my dad, which humble, he did the best he could with the tools that he was given. And so I knew, sometimes people live in a certain environment that they don't know there's they don't know there's another way to be or live.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But I was there and I was like, man, I know there's options and I need to get out. And it wasn't until, I joined the Navy where I was just like, wow, like I have opportunities here. So while I was there, I started enrolling in college, and I had a warrant officer that was teaching, I believe he was teaching an English class, if I remember correctly. He was a warrant officer. This was out in Norfolk, Little Creek base. And he said to me, he's like, hey, man, everywhere you're stationed, you should buy a house, and just keep it and you'll be rich. And I'm like, all right, cool. So at that point in my life, I was like a sponge, and I programmed myself to just, look for mentors and look for advice for people that are doing it at a higher level. And then my LPO, my supervisor at work, I told him, I was like, yeah, I think I want to buy a house. I was an E4. At the time, and he was like, yeah, here's my real estate agent's number. So I called him up immediately. It's amazing how much, like, I had no hesitation to do any of it. Like good. Now, like a lot of, no fear. Like I just didn't know better though. Sometimes when you don't know better, you just go with it. And that was a blessing. Agent showed me around. I bought a house, actually a townhouse right across the street from Little Creek. These little townhouses on the water, 2-bedroom apartment. I rented. It was a 2-bedroom condo, a townhouse style condo, and it was I rented my room, the other room, and I rented the couch. I was single, right? And they paid for it. So that was my first real estate, experience. I bought it. I rented out another room. I rented out the couch to another service member that was serving with me, and I lived for free. I'm like, man, this makes sense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then from there, I started reading up, and I purchased, man, I can't remember the name of the program. It's one of those 2 a.m. programs, right? It was about Carlton Sheets. Exactly.
In there.
Yeah. And you know what they say? A lot of people don't use that stuff. I opened Carlton Sheets and it was like lease option. Oh, that sounds like it makes sense. So I lived in the condo for about 2.5 years, and I did a lease option for 2.5 years.
Wow.
For 2.5 years, 3 years. What was it? No, 2.5 years, right? 2.5 years. So then, and then it worked out perfectly. Anything less than $500 that broke, they took care of. Anything over, we split 50-50. And we had to agree on the price or whatever. So I bought it for like 50 grand, sold it for 150. So that was my first kind of real estate thing. So then when I got transferred to Pensacola, Florida, I was like, I still want to, I had the real estate bug, I wanted to get into real estate, and I had a great job, really low key, low responsibility. And I was able to get my real estate license, and my boss, believe it or not, he's out of the military now. So I can say this, because when you look back, I'm like, wow, we shouldn't have done it that way. But he was the Master Chief. He ended up becoming Master Chief of the Navy, Master Chief Stevens. So he was, which is the highest ranking enlisted person in the Navy. But at the time, he was my boss, and he encouraged me to get my license, and he let me sell his house. And it was time for me to get out, and I was doing well. I was selling a bunch of houses, and I told him, I was like, what should I do? I'm at like that 10-year mark. And in the military, once you're at that 10-year mark, you better go or stay, because you're right there, right? Yeah. So anyway, so he told me, he's like, hey, listen, you're probably one of the first people I'm going to tell this to, but you're doing well. Like, get out, get out. As long as you have a plan, you prepare for retirement, and this is what you want to do. I think that's a great idea. So that was how it all started.
Got you. And so 20 years later, so you've been in 20 years, right? 20 years in real estate?
2005. So almost 20 years. Yeah.
Okay, almost 20 years. Wow.
Almost 20 years in the real estate game.
Yeah, in the real estate game.
You did 10 in the Navy.
What's that?
You did 10 in the Navy.
Correct. Now, when I got licensed in 2005, I got out of the Navy in 2007.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So there was 2 years. It was a 2-year transition, because honestly, I didn't really get that license to like, hey, I'm going to be a real estate agent. It was just like, all right, let me kind of get my license, and it helped me out. But then it became like, the guy down the road, military guy that I knew, he's like, help me sell my house. I was like, all right, cool. So I listed his house, and, it just started snowballing from there. And, and how it is with the military, you have that instant credibility and that trust for the most part in a lot of ways, so I was able to build that reputation and just be a value to my service members that were, wanting to relocate out of the area.
Got you. So you really didn't go through the struggles or the challenges of being a first year agent when you first got in full time. You kind of like glided and eased into.
You kind of slid into home base real quick.
Yeah, pretty much. But yes, and I believe I sold the one house my first year, and again, I didn't really go until about a year after, when I decided like, hey, I'm getting out.
Yeah,
is when I started to be like, man, I gotta do something. I gotta start generating business, and I gotta figure out, what this looks like. But I saw them commission checks, and I keep my expenses low. So like one commission check covered me for 2 months. I was like, man, like this is where it's at, So it was, the numbers made sense. But yeah, I didn't have that first year kind of go at it. But I was always absorbing information though. So like it was something where like I had some good information, and I had some decent mentors around. So when it was time to go all in, I was knocking on doors, stuffing mailboxes, making calls and stuff like that. So I was doing anything and everything.
Gotcha. So looking back on it now, would you have done anything different as far as the transition out for the Navy? Would you have stayed in? What would you have done differently, if anything at all?
No, I don't think so. I don't look at things too much like that, where like what I could have done differently, because I feel extremely blessed where I'm at now, and you never know if that would have changed my trajectory. But if I did get, but because of that, hindsight being 2020, like I'm glad I got out of the Navy for sure. I miss the camaraderie that you have in the military. You don't really find that outside, because you're forced to be around people that you probably wouldn't have hung out with before, right? And then you build a solid relationship. If I could have done it over, and if I, giving a young agent advice, they didn't have teams. Teams wasn't a thing back then.
Okay.
But that would be something I usually tell people, like, hey, consider a team, because you're thrown into the middle of a lot of activity. And that's how I like to. I'm the kid that learned to swim by being thrown in the middle of the pool, right? So like that's how I feel is the best way to learn personally. But I would have nurtured and been more purposeful with the VIP, creating your Met sphere, and pouring into them and connecting with them and looking for referrals. Because I was very much I got a lot of introductions and referrals, but it was very organic. I did not try at all. I was trying to hustle for that next piece of business, and it came to me. And I know I could have done 10 times more business if I would have been more purposeful with creating, a VIP kind of network, I guess you could say. So that's what I would have done. And that's it, really. And I think because of the way I was raised, and this is something I've just started realizing the last couple of years, is that when you're raised to depend on yourself, and then there's proven results, it's hard to get to that. It's hard to open up to let me be transparent and take advice from other people.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a big challenge. That has stunted my growth in the past. But again, it's a blessing because I've been able to reflect, acknowledge, and then grow from it.
Gotcha.
So I have a question for you. You said you did a lot. You had a lot of mentors while you were in the military that kind of coached you to get your license and sell real estate. Was there anybody in the real estate industry that you looked up to say, listen, I'm going to kind of model my career after this particular person?
No, I wish there was. I'll be honest with you. I mean, what was interesting, it was in Pensacola, which is the poorest county in Florida, Escambia, right? So the numbers weren't crazy. I mean, the number one agent, I think, sold 60 homes, so it wasn't anything but it was the first mentor I had was this guy named Jeff. He taught the real estate course. And then I ended up signing with that office. It was a Century 21 office. And he was just the best advice he could give me, honestly, because of my personality, it helped a lot, was when I asked him advice, he would ask, well, what do you think? And so that just reinforced the idea, I got this, I'll figure this out. Right. Yeah. And I think that's helpful, for sure. Helpful. And I think, and he gave good advice that way, and he was always do the right thing. At the end of the day, do the right thing, and it's always going to come back at you. So if your client's priority is your number one priority, even if that means maybe you're not going to have a closing or anything like that, it doesn't matter, because long-term, it's always going to come back to you. So that's a philosophy that I still hold on to this day, where it's and I tell my clients, my number one goal is your number one goal. So if that means we're not closing on a house this month and we're going to have to wait till next year, that's perfectly fine. And by living that way and by doing business that way, it's just going to come back to you. When you have that mentality of abundance, I mean, you're not worried about one or two transactions here or there. You're worried about that reputation, and,
right.
And doing the right thing.
Gotcha.
If you can, Rebecca, one more. If you can remember, can you walk us through chronologically your years in the real estate game to the point where you really finally realized, okay, I got this? Can you walk us through that?
That's a great question. That's a real great question, Chris. I do believe when I started, all right, so I got licensed in 2005. And then again, it wasn't really just to be a big real. You didn't see that. This is how old I am, right? Social media wasn't a thing, right? There was no look at that real estate agent selling a bunch of houses. Look at that real estate agent. It was just the people the office that you were in, and the sheet that said these, the MLS where you looked to see who sold what, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't have that. I feel like now there's more of that kind of competitiveness, and there's this person's doing good, but we didn't have that then. So licensed in 2005, 2007, it was, it was time to I was calling, and I was going to whitepages.com and putting in a street address and calling all these people. And I was getting some momentum. And then from there, my wife, she graduated from the University of South Alabama as a physician assistant. And there was a challenge for her to find a job. So I told her, I was like, hey, just check in Jacksonville. We got family in Jacksonville. It's a military base. And let's just see what happens, So immediately she got a call from a Colombian doctor that was like, yo, we need you. You speak Spanish, and then I didn't think it was going to happen that fast, to be honest. So then I had to start over in 2009. I was number one, number two in the office, just kind of going at it, just kind of feeling hey, I feel like I got this. But then then we moved to Jacksonville, largest land-based city in the United States, new MLS. I didn't know that many people. So I ended up going with a company that had the Paredes business. If you don't know what the Paredes business is, it's just a contract with a relocation company that gives you money, that gives you, and with a brokerage that gives the agents leads, pretty decent leads at a pretty steep cut, right? Of the business. Mm-hmm. So I had to start over, and man, it was hard. It was a challenge starting over, and there were times, to be honest, where I'm like maybe I should do something else. Like, is there something else? I still got my GI Bill, but there's nothing else I'd rather do. There was nothing else I enjoyed. I kind of like that feeling of my back against the wall. I had to make it happen. And then I started, started doing my thing. Still wasn't a big thing. I got a call from an agent. Her name was Christine Lee. Now, she had a team. She called me up. She's like, hey, we're looking for an agent, buyer's agent. And I was kind of at a weird spot where I'm like, I don't know, but I was like, yeah, I'll meet up with you. So I go to her office, and there's a bunch of agents there, and she sits me down, and she's asking me questions, and I'm looking around her wall, and she has like a vision board, and she has like her org chart, right? And she's sharing all these things, and she has a software company, and she's doing all these things. And then I'm like, where are you getting this from? What is the model? She's like, oh, I'm part of Keller Williams. And I'm just like, and I've heard of Keller Williams. I read the book, but just, I didn't see this stuff. And I wasn't exposed to this. Right. So then she asked me, do you want to be on a team? I'm like, no. I was like, I want to do what you're doing.
Right.
I remember how excited I was inside to just feel like, man, there's so much more out there. There's just so much more opportunity, and you could build something so big that it'll outlast you. Right. And then you can leave it behind. And they're just, to me, it was honestly a moment that I was like, wow, like I can do this for the rest of my life. Like this, it was amazing. It was an amazing moment. So I remember that was the moment that I knew, like, all right, this is my journey. This is my journey. And it's been quite a journey, but this is my journey. So yeah, that was the moment for me. That was when I met her and I saw her world, and I'm like, this is possible.
Wow.
And that's what encouraged me just to go all in and not have that, like, kind of, should I stay? Should I go? Just, go all in with real estate.
And at this point, you're about 4 years in.
No, this was honestly 2016. Because remember, like, I got licensed 2005. I left Pensacola in 2009, 2010. I stayed with that Paredes business for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
6 years. Yeah. So it was, and I wanted to leave the whole time. I mean, people that know me know what company I'm talking about, and it's a great company, and it was on me. Like, I wanted to grow, and it wasn't the money. It really wasn't the money, because honestly, like, there was moments, and it happens to me now where, like, I have an amazing month, and am I happy or no? Because to me, it's about the growth. Like, I always want to feel like I'm growing. I like that consistency and that, like, that growth. I don't want that crazy month and then just a slow month after. That's really what I'm after. And not just in regards to just the GCI, but just growth in general, right? Because when you're not growing, you're dying. And I actually talked to a buddy of mine. He was a real estate agent here. Chadwick Harris was his name. Real close friend. Like, he was at my house, and I'm like, I'm depressed in real estate. And I had a great closings and stuff. And he's like, what's wrong? I was like, I'm not growing. Like, I feel stuck.
Wow.
Like, it's not about the money. And then it just happened with Christine Lee. And then, just like, oh man, like, this is where it's at, Wow. So, but yeah, so that's the timeline.
Maurice, I don't know if you realize this or not, but that's the second time Christine Lee has come, somebody credited their career to Christine
Lee. Really? Who was it?
That's awesome.
Was it Jen Henry?
Jennifer Henry said the
same thing. She was on her team as well. Yep.
She said
she's birthed a lot of great people. A lot of great
people. Christine Lee, if you're listening, we want you on this podcast.
Yeah, she's amazing. And you know what's funny? Like, I was never really in her world. Like, Jen was, for sure, because she was on her team. I met her that one time. And that's what's interesting. Sometimes you meet somebody one time. That's why anytime you meet somebody, like, agents call me, new agents, I'll take some time to talk to them and pour into them. Because sometimes just that one time, just that comment, that faith, that, like, hey, you got this. That's why I'm always so open about my background, like foster homes and, just being a knucklehead, and then the military. It's just because, like, if I can do it, you can do it. And that's how I look about real estate. Like, if he can do it, I can do it. Not because, like, I'm better than that person, but, like, we both got two hands and feet, and, so that's how I look at it. So I thank her. And I mentioned it to her before. But yeah, you should have her on the podcast.
Awesome.
Got you. So let me ask you this, and just going back to a military question. So what skills or what things did you bring from your military career into your real estate business that has made you more successful?
That's a great question. I think networking. I think networking. Okay. And when I say networking, I mean just communicating. I think because that's what networking is, right? Just communicating effectively. I think that was a big thing. I took a leadership class that really opened my eyes, and it's because it had me read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of in a weird spot because prior to the Navy, I did some club stuff, club promoting and stuff. And then when I joined the Navy, I did the same thing in Virginia. There was a club called the Blue Bar. We would rent it out. You know, they'd get the bar, we get the door. We bring some Spanish acts from Miami and stuff like that. And it was fun time, you know, and it was like a little side hustle I would do over there in Virginia Beach. But I was like, you know, like I wanted more, you know, and I remember reading that book and that leadership book and taking that class. And that really opened my eyes to just the principles that they teach in there, like being proactive versus reactive. No one ever said that to me. Who says that to anybody? My daughter now, my 8-year-old daughter says that, like, hey, we need to be proactive here.
Right.
Like, I'm like, yes, you know, like I love that, you know, just us be pouring into her everything I've been able to learn. But yeah, that's been a very impactful to me in regards to just being able to communicate effectively with people. Systems, you know, documenting systems and things of that nature. And, you know, sometimes you hear something, you learn something, but it doesn't impact you enough, or you're not at that level where you're actually implementing it. Right. Yeah. So a lot of this, you know, so a lot of that stuff got implemented later on, but really it's just that camaraderie, the being able to communicate with different types of people. Where I grew up, you know, there was just kind of a part of my life, the same type of people. They all communicated a certain way. We talked a lot with our hands, you know, it's not everybody likes that. You know?
Right. Yeah.
So it was just a lot of different, so it was just a change, you know, the military was definitely a change and meeting different types of people from all over the country and even the world. And just that. And also I would say accountability. That was a big thing too, because my job was I was accountable to making sure that life limited components on aircraft were addressed and taken care of and stuff. And it felt like a boring job, but I saw when an aircraft like crashed, you know, like an aircraft crash, and they came and they took all the books that we were responsible for. And if someone did something wrong, they in trouble.
Yeah.
So like I was just like, ooh, like this is an important job. So like I remember that moment where I was like, all right, so like I got to be accountable. I got to make sure this is done right. You know, it was just one of those things where I saw like if I did something wrong, it's the possibility that someone will lose their life. Right. So I just remember that, and that stuck with me a long time. Just being accountable for things that matter.
Got you.
Man, you got one question? Got one?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. So I like to ask a lot of habit questions, man, because I think, you know, success leaves a lot of clues. Mm-hmm. Success leaves a lot of trails, right? So things on the trail. Walk us through your day. Like, give us when Roberto goes to bed, at what time, we wake up at what time, and this is what we do. Walk us through your day. Okay.
I'll do that. Now, just also remember, like, I'm always evolving that. And that's a great question, because that's to me is a cornerstone habit of like, you know, how you go to bed. Because I don't want to say more important, but maybe more important than what you do in the morning is what you do at night.
Preparation.
You know, so what I started doing at night, which has been impactful to me, there's a little app. You don't have to use an app. You can do it on a paper. Is just reflecting on what you're thankful for. 3 things you're thankful for in the day.
That's good.
Just 3 things you're thankful for. And then your 3 intentions for the next day. And the beauty of that is not like the beauty of doing it that way versus did I do the 3 things that I said I was going to do, is that sometimes it doesn't work that way. Right. Mm-hmm. And what is a beautiful life, or what is how do you measure a great life, but by having great years, great months, great weeks, great days. So by asking yourself, what are the 3 things I'm grateful for this day? You're putting like an exclamation mark and you're under like, this was great about this day.
That's good.
Right. So you go to bed, because I've had this happen where like I'm going to bed thinking of everything I didn't do and all my failures. Right. But you go to bed like I'm blessed and this was a beautiful day, because boom. And you go to sleep that way. And you also set your intentions obviously for the next day. So I'll get up usually about my ideal time to wake up is about 4:30 to work out, and then I have time block time for my daughter. So in the morning, I wake them up, I cook them breakfast, I cook my wife breakfast. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
I love it, bro.
Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I take them to school. They're gonna to daycare, pretty much, Goddard, but they're gonna start school, so it's gonna be 5 days a week. So I'm blessed to be where I'm at, where I get to walk them. It's a 15-minute walk, and now my youngest is gonna be walking with me as well. My oldest, 8-year-old, I've always taken those opportunities to just ask questions, like, hey, like, what's your favorite animal? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? I just want to have those kind of conversations. But that's my morning for the most part. So then at 8:30, I'm on a Zoom call with my team, with my admin, Cassandra Gomez, and with my ISA, inside sales agent, MJ. And we're going over, the first thing we do is, what are you grateful for? We used to do something real long. It would last like 40 minutes. It was like, all right, we need to stop doing this because like things are not getting done, but we start out what you're grateful for. And we talk a little bit about that. Then we go through the files real quick. 9 o'clock, we are script and role playing with my ISA and an agent that'll jump on, Eric, our agent. And then we just do script and role playing. And then we just stay on Zoom and we make calls until about 11:30. 11:30, just depends. Sometimes we can go harder, sometimes we go back. Then after that, we have a 1 o'clock Zoom call, and we just touch base, make sure I go back, look at the time blocks. Hey, everything's looking good. And then we just, ideally there's appointments after that. Mondays we have, Mondays like CEO Mondays. So we get together with the team, go over the numbers for the week. And that's all stuff through coaching, because I'm in coaching right now with Tom Ferry, that has over time accumulated to the time blocks that we have now. So I really do my best to, like, these are very, very important things. I do my best to say yes to the most important things, so that I don't feel guilty saying no to other things. Like, there's a lot of stuff I'd rather do, or there's other stuff I'd like to do all the social stuff that a lot of agents get to do or do. But I know I'm exactly where I need to be.
That's good.
Right. And that's either like in the morning with my kids, that's our quality time. In the evening, having dinner. Like, Fridays are sacred. I make pizza. We have dessert, we watch a movie, and we pass out on the couch. Like, that's my Fridays with my kids,
I love it.
Yeah. That's where I'm at.
Gotcha. Hey, so real quick, Roberto, you talked about in your bio the 5 disciplines of successful realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of go into what those are and what they look like?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what it was that I sat down and I thought, like, what it was is what are the 5 things that have really helped me in life, because life is a teacher, military, if you let it, Marie said, but and I'm sure you can attest to this. There's some people that join the military and they're just the same knucklehead, and they don't change and they get kicked out, or they allow it to be, what it can be. It could be a great teacher in life, and you can allow it to mold you, right? You got to want that. You got to be open to that. But I feel strongly that the real estate's exactly the same thing. To be successful, right? It's like a staircase. You gotta start at a certain base point, right? And you want to grow, right? So your business grows to the extent that you do, right? I'm sure we've all heard that before. But these were the 5 things that I allowed real estate to help mold me into a better leader, into a better person, and I'm using real estate to teach me, because again, I grew up a certain way, a certain father, a certain childhood, and it wasn't the best programming, right? But I'm able to take, for me to be a better agent, I have to show up on time. I have to present myself a certain way. I have to be prepared. I have to just continue to grow. And what I love about this is that everything I'm learning, everything you guys have learned, like, we can instill in our children.
Yes.
Like, I want my kids, like, they're gonna know all this stuff. And that's what's exciting me, because I used to feel like, man, I'm in my like late 30s or early 40s, and I'm just learning this. Why am I just learning this? And and I'd almost like resent, my old man. I'd almost resent my childhood. But I was like, you know what? This is my journey. Their journey is gonna be different. Right.
Yeah.
So to me, that's just so powerful. And that's why I love real estate. You know, like you got to be careful not to be trying to chase the carrot, chase that agent ahead of you or anything like that. That's nothing wrong with trying to be competitive. But at the same time, you know, you got to enjoy this journey, because a lot of times people feel they'll be happy when they get to a certain point. Life doesn't work that way, right? But anyway, so to go back to what you're saying, what you asked, number one was enhanced communication skills.
Okay.
It was something that, you know, I learned through real estate, and I learned in the military that, you know, the way you communicate is extremely important. So you learn the mirror and matching. You learn to speak to people where they're at. You know, a lot of times we know all this stuff, and we speak to somebody over here as far as the knowledge that we're trying to communicate, and they're not here. And then sometimes people have a hard time understanding. It's like, oh, you're here. Let me talk to you here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Let me take the baby steps to bring you up here. Right. And that was a huge aha moment for me, you know, because I'm like, why don't they understand? Like I'm giving you all the knowledge, you know, and it's just like they're not there. So we got to get them there. So that was a big thing. The other one was increased empathy and understanding. That goes back to that, though, me understanding where they're at, you know, me, you know, empathizing with their situation. I might not match my situation, or I might not understand it, but that doesn't mean that's not their situation. Right. Gotcha. So that was a big one for me, and that allowed me to not take things personally too, because sometimes, you know, we attach it to our ego why things don't turn out a certain way, and it's really just them not being, you know, like them being in a certain place, and we just got to understand like that's where they're at. You know, it has nothing to do with me. You know, that's just where they're at. Adaptability and problem solving. You know, just being a successful agent is going to be able to have answers, right? Or at least get the answers. We learned that in the military, right? You might not know the answer, but you know where to get it.
Yes.
You know, so I'm a big proponent of that, you know, like that's what it's about, you know, and and I think that's a thing that all these are things that just help you with life, right? You know, so again, I thank real estate. I thank the Navy for you know, allowing me to be a student and allowing me to learn these things. The other one is financial literacy and responsibility. Man, there was a couple years in my real estate life where I made some good money, and I forgot to pay the IRS. When I say I forgot to pay the IRS, I mean I forgot to pay them enough. And then I started seeing what it looked like to you know, like, man, these interests are like they're making money off of me. Like, now I got to get out this hole. And I was like, man, what do I do? And now I had to learn about P&Ls. Now I had to, I'm like, damn, who am I going to get a P&L from? I got a great recommendation. I spoke to Cece, you know, and she gave me a recommendation for somebody that did, you know, P&L is a company that she was using. And I called them up and they helped me out. And, you know, I started learning about, you know, just, you know, the financials and real estate and business. This is about business, you know, it's the same exact thing. And to me, I'm thankful for that. Right? Because now you can look at a P&L, you can look at a bank, you know, you're looking at these statements and you can understand where the business is coming from, where the leaks in the boat are, right? You know, the cost of sale, right? You know, what percentage, like, hey, I'm spending, you know, 40% on lead gen. That's a lot, you know, like, or, you know, we need to adjust this to this because the results from this business was from this, but we're spending this and only getting this. You see what I'm saying? So like learning all those things are so important because, you know, I mean, it just helps you become financially literate, you know, and that's super important. And then obviously the time management and discipline, you know, that took time. You know, there was literally a day that I put on a suit and I sat on my couch and I played Call of Duty all day long. I was there, you know, like, and then my wife came home. She's like, "You've been here all day?" I'm like, "Yeah." I literally had to take that game out, and I sold it. I'm like, "Hey, this is like crack." Like, you know.
What year in your business was this? What year in your business was this?
This was 2010. This is when I moved here.
Got it.
Because it was a weird thing where like my wife was doing really well financially as a physician. We didn't need the money.
Yeah.
So that, you know, it's a weird problem to have. You know, like, you know, so it's just like they didn't need me to sell a house, but I was like, all right, you know, I just didn't have that motivation. And I'll tell you a moment that really created motivation. So if someone needs maybe that motivation is when I hired an admin. You want to talk about like, hey, I'm responsible for this person's, you know, well-being and paying their rent or paying their mortgage. Like I need to produce.
Yes.
Right. That was a game changer there because I didn't, you know, when you don't have a large, you know, expenses, you know what I'm saying, for the month, then you're kind of sometimes thinking like, that's all I need to make.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Then you start piling up. You're like, ooh. So that was a big change. And to add to that, when you talk about, making money, I guess, let me just add to this. There's a great book called Profit First. And that was a huge game changer for me. So I started adding on my P&L, on my expenses, my profit. I got to profit this amount of money. And now that's my bar, right? So so that's what I keep on looking at. So Profit First is a great book. I'd recommend a lot of people. Now, depending on where they're at, some people need to learn to show up on time first and time block and all those things. You know what I'm saying? But you start having a P&L and you start talking about profitability and things like that. That book to me is top shelf.
Gotcha.
That's good. Okay. A lot of things you talked about, man. The 5 things that you talked about, each one of those things, we could probably have a whole show just on each one of those little things. But you talked about earlier, you talked about coaching, and you talked about how your career evolved once you started to do the coaching. How important? Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. So there was a time. This was probably we're at 223 right now. It's probably 5 years ago. I got into coaching. I paid for coaching, and it didn't work out. I wasn't ready to be coached. I wasn't ready to be coached. Again, going back to my programming, where like I got this. I don't need to listen to you. That little kid, like, hey, I can't depend on anybody. I got this, right? That was me, right? And because of everybody, you got to get into coaching. I was like, all right, I had money, like throw money against the wall, see what sticks, and figure like, I'll get into coaching. And I wasn't open to it. And it wasn't until recently, it wasn't until about a year and a half where I'm just like, man, I feel like I'm running in place. I need coaching, I need something. And I was ready. And I'll tell you what, everything he said I did, and it changed a lot. It changed a lot. It changed the culture and the team. It changed my priorities. It just changed because I was ready. So I think coaching is amazing, but if you're not ready to be coached,
that's good.
You have to be ready to be coached, because if you're not, it's gonna be hard. It's not gonna work. It's gonna be a waste of your time, waste of your money. So, but just understand that the greats have coaches. And you need somebody from the outside to look in, that's been there, that's seen it, to give you some objective advice and tell you like, hey, this is what you got to do, and you got to be the right one too. Not everybody is a good fit for everybody, but I highly recommend coaching. I think it's very, very valuable. I'll probably always have a coach.
Was this something that you came up with on your own, or was it someone that you saw that you was like, man, that person is doing extremely well, they have a coach, let me go and see if I need to do the exact same thing?
Great question. I had there was multiple options for me for coaching, but DJ and Lindsay, they use Tom Ferry. So and I had a transaction referral of a close friend of mine in Washington DC, and you know what? I know exactly. I have more clarity on that. No one's ever asked me that, and now that I'm just thinking. So what happened was that's not the way it went. The way it went was I asked my friend from DC, what real estate agent did you use? Because I have a friend here that's relocating over there, and they gave me a person. So then I referred my friend. I walked in halfway through the Zoom consultation, and I was impressed by the Zoom. They had a system down. It was so cool the way they did it, where like literally after the consultation, they door dashed ice cream to the front door of that buyer. They're like, hey, by the way, what kind of ice cream do you like? Like, oh, we like vanilla ice cream. Like, all right, cool. We're gonna, as a gift for allowing us to be of value to you with your relocation over here, we're gonna send you some vanilla ice cream that we enjoy. And they literally, they had it sent to the house. I'm like, so I called him like, bro, like, where'd you get this from? Like, what model? Like, I'm into modeling, right? I want to just, I just want to rip off and duplicate, right? So I'm like, where'd you get this from? He's like, man, I got a coach, Tom Ferry. And then I had thought about Tom Ferry before because I know DJ and Lizzie has, and there's other great coaches as well. So I ended up going with Tom Ferry, and they assigned me somebody based off of personality, all that kind of stuff. So it's been a good fit. So that's what made me select them. But I would tell people that feel like they need coaching, do coaching, and if that coach isn't the right for you, look for another coach. But make sure not to jump ship because someone's telling you something you don't want to hear. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got to hear what you got to hear.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. Gotcha. So let's talk really quick. Mindset. So, I mean, we talked about that before. You had the mindset to where you know, your wife's a PA. Hey, you really don't need to make money. I mean,
Right.
you're financially good. So what do you think? Actually, I would say, what do you think your mindset had to go to get to where you're like, okay, this is it. I'm finna take this thing on, take this bull by the horn. I'm finna go ahead and slay the dragon of real estate.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there was two things. Number one is that I had, I started praying a lot and meditating and just evaluating and putting things in perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've realized that I've been so blessed. Like I had like when I tell people the details of my upbringing, they're like, oh my gosh, but I feel so blessed. It would be a sin for me not to play at my full potential.
Gotcha.
Right. I feel it would be disrespectful for me not to give it my all. Right. So that was one thing. And that kind of gave me the fuel to like, I need to figure this out. But what had happened was, and it happens to a lot of people, is in real estate and business in general, is I started getting burned out. I started just really pushing and sometimes just trying to push a brick wall, and it was just because I wasn't going in the right direction. Or I wasn't asking for help, but I was pushing and I was working and I had no problem working, like to me, like I'll work 12-hour days, no problem. Yeah. But then my wife reminded me I was married. Right. And she's like, hey, right. So me naturally, right. Yeah. As a provider, like I didn't take that well. Right. I was just like, hey, I'm here working, I'm here working. My wife, honestly, she don't care if I'm working at McDonald's or Burger King, she just wants me home for dinner. And I'll be like, yo, I'm working. Right. And it wasn't until there's Keller Williams, there's a class called Bold. Right. And it has this section where it's like a meditation kind of section. And it's like the man on the hill. And I'm probably butchering kind of the whole thing, but the premise is that, you're meditating, you're praying, you're imagining a man on a hill. You see a silhouette of a person on the hill and you're going up. It's a beautiful spring day. You feel good. You feel happy. And then you get to the top of the hill and it's you. It's you old. What do you say to yourself? Bro, I'd be lying if I didn't say I didn't shed tears.
Oh man.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So it was just so impactful to me, right? So the way that impacted me was that I'm gonna get as far as I could possibly go, but I'm gonna get there with my wife. I'm gonna get there with my daughters. I'm gonna get there with my health. I'm gonna get there with my sanity. You know what I'm saying? Like that to me is winning, because if you get to the top of the mountain with just money, you lost.
Yeah.
So like it has to be like. So for me, that mindset and that motivation is like, I'm going to push and I'm going to take everybody with me and I'm going to get as far as I can with everybody with me, and at that point, I'm going to give my all, so that's the mindset I have right now.
Gotcha. You were talking, I know you're going to say something, Maurice, but as you were talking, man, that reminds me of my morning prayer that I always say in my prayer, God, don't allow me to be a public success and a private failure.
Oh, that's a beautiful one. I love that.
Don't allow me to be a public success and a private failure.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? I want, getting married or whatever. I want my children to be just as impressed with me as everybody else.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Don't let me be a public success and a private failure.
I love that. No, that's huge.
Stuff, brother. That's good stuff.
Thanks.
Yeah. I got some, brother. This dude laid out. Look, I got notes. I got stuff everywhere. I'm listening, baby. One of the things you talked about was competitiveness. In the society that we live in, social media, every other day someone's posting, I just sold $1 million home, and we got TV shows all over talking about, $1 million listing, and these people doing major deals, $100 million deals. How do you keep your head in the game and not focus on the competitiveness of this industry and just stay with your head down and just keep going forward? How do you manage that?
I just remember my priorities at the end of the day. And like you said, as far as a private failure and a public success, we all know that just because you sold that house, like to me, it's just, like we all know that doesn't mean he's happy. He's successful. Yeah. Right. We know that, we know that. And I think that I think we have to remember that. And I think as long as we compete with ourselves, like to me, that's just compete with yourself. You know, how how'd you do now versus last year and last month, and why? Right. So we do a 12-week year in our team. You know, that's how we plan things, 12-week years. Yep. So and that's a great book, by the way, too.
Yep. Great book. I read
it. Yeah. So so it's just kind of like, how do we do last month or last quarter, and then how we doing this quarter? It's just kind of comparing, you know, and that's what you want to be that's what you want the metric to be, because there's always going to be somebody ahead of you. And that race to me is a toxic race. That's right. Good. And I think that it could be, now it depends how you look at it. Again, I look at it where like, man, they did it. That's awesome. If they can do it, I can do it. But it's an optimistic way. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, you know, it's just reaffirming that I got this.
Not in a jealous way.
Yeah. You know, so it's just that, or how'd they do it? Like, I want to learn how they did it, you know, like congratulate them. You know what I'm saying? Like, everyone has their struggles and stuff like that. So at least for me, I'm just happy for everybody, you know, and I hope they're happy, and I hope they're doing well. And I'm gonna keep on growing the best way I know how to grow, and just trying to be better than I was, you know, the week before. And that's it. Just keep your head down and just do your thing, you know. And again, it's about profitability too. So a lot of times, you know, the GCI looks great, you know, but that net on that P&L is what matters, right? You know, like at the end of the day, you know, that's what matters.
That's good.
You know,
absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, you know, I keep going.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You got something?
Yeah, I asked you something. So you've been in the business for a very long time, and we've talked about your ups and downs, and you're pretty established now with your team. So give us something, if you have anything. What irritates you with new agents or seasoned agents that you see in the game now?
Oh, what irritates me? That's a good question. All right. What irritates me?
Or pet peeve or something?
Yeah, I would say just them thinking it's gonna be easy. You know, like it should. You know, I think that this is a challenging business, and I love it. You know, so for someone to come in and just be like, "Oh, this is easy," like, all right, you know, let's try it out. you know, it's not. You might be also one or two, so you know, some family members, some homes, but then, you know, like what's gonna happen after that?
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's that, you know, because it makes me sad, because it's like, you know, like you're either wasting your time, or you're not providing good service, or you're not in this for the right reasons, you know. And this industry's done a lot for me, and I'm super grateful, and I'll always be grateful. And I want to pour into those people that, you know, just want to do the right thing and see the opportunities in this business, not only to grow their business, but to grow themselves. Like, this is an amazing opportunity.
Yes.
You know, like I know, you know, I just know people with doctorates and masters and stuff, and we can really do much better than them financially in that sense. And that's a blessing. That's great, you know. And I think it's but yeah. So, and then what else? I would say, I think recently, actually, you know what? Recently, a slight pet peeve is just that you get agents that still think the market is what it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and the way they negotiate, you know, and things like that. I'm like, hey, the market's, you know, I had a transaction recently, and I think it was just, you know, an experience. And it's a shame, you know, that you know, we could have had a deal, but because of that thing that happened, you know, because of the way the negotiation was, it was pretty much how people were 2 years ago, you know. So it's just that lack of education, that lack of understanding, you know. But I guess those would be the only things. I try to, you know, I'm very good at, like, if someone makes a mistake or does something wrong, someone cuts me off. A better example, someone cuts me off in traffic. I'm just like, maybe it's an emergency. You know, like that. That's kind of like my vibe typically. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe they did this, you know, because not only, and really that's for my own peace. Because I don't know, right?
Yeah.
That's number one. I don't know, and which vibe is gonna serve me better.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So I give a lot of people grace when it comes to stuff like that.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. So give us, what's the next 3, 5, 10 years looks like?
Whew, that's a great question. I've been asking myself that, you know, a lot. So what I would like to do is, you know, continue to grow the team. However, I've been doing this a long time. Like you said, you know, I'm thinking about my daughters. Like, I don't know what my daughters want to do, but I want them to get their real estate license, and I want them to understand investing, and I want them to own something, part of the business. So I'm wanting to have a tangible asset besides investment properties, just kind of like a vehicle for them to learn through, right? For the most part. So looking to see what that looks like, exploring some property management opportunities, and then also more investment opportunities, perhaps even doing some coaching. I mean, in this business, we can go so many different directions, right? There's so many different options. So what I'm trying to be more conscious of, like something that I've started doing the last probably 2 or 3 months, is more deep thinking. Like we think very much in a, shallow. So like a decision like that, what's the trajectory for the next like 3 or 4 years? I have to put into consideration the landscape of my life, the chapter I'm in with my daughters, what I want my day-to-day look to look like. So I'm a lot more conscious of that. If you would have asked me this 20 years ago, I would have just been head down, boom, like whatever, I don't care how long it takes, what it takes, I'll work, so I'm a lot more sensitive now to my time and effort that I'm putting into it. So that, to answer your question, those are my options right now. And I'm just making sure it fits, the lifestyle that I want to have. And remember, I'm bringing everybody with me, right? So it has to fit.
Gotcha. Well, here's a deeper one. Then let me ask you this way: do you see an end game from the day-to-day real estate transactions for you?
End game, yeah, definitely. I don't know when that would be. I mean, to be honest, because I do really enjoy this.
Okay.
I do enjoy pouring into agents and talking to agents. So again, maybe just kind of some leadership. I've had some opportunities to perhaps to manage office.
Okay.
But I just, again, it's I'd have to see. I think once you have a team, you can create enough leverage.
There you go.
To not be in the day-to-day as much, and if we've created that, for the most part, and we're continuing to grow that. So I have that leverage. But I like the interaction. I like the interaction with the client. I like the lead gen, and like again, like I've had those thoughts, like what else could I do? Like I love this, because as you probably know, like owning a brokerage and doing that full time is very different than being an agent.
Yes.
Right. And then, doing property management is different than being an agent. And, so it's very different. So like, while like this might be a logical evolution, you might not like that. You might not like that, where you're at with that. So, but of course, yeah. So, I mean, that's so I'm just going to keep on going down and figuring it out. What's that?
Is owning your own brokerage an option for you? Have you ever thought owning your own brokerage?
Yeah, like right before I left Pensacola, that was something that I was talking to a buddy of mine. We were thinking about starting a franchise. And then I actually brought it up to my coach, as far as opening up a brokerage, continuing the team model, doing those things. He had mentioned that, pretty much a team model is the most profitable model there is versus, opening up a brokerage in a lot of ways.
There you go.
But especially now, I mean, we got EXP, you got all these other companies, right? These great companies that have really changed the models on how they do things, right? That real estate was pretty much the same for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then, it's changed a lot, so there's just a lot of options out there. But opening up a broker is the idea, because if it's a tangible asset, and really at the end of the day, right? Me just thinking out loud with you and kind of playing the other side of that coin.
Yeah, go ahead.
The real asset is your database.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's the real asset. Right. So like open up a brokerage, opening a brokerage was on the table. Probably not something I'm going to be, moving forward with. I think more, it just makes sense to continue to grow the team and to look at opportunities and maybe partnerships, and see what else is out there. But I'm very content. I'm very happy where I'm at. I got to be careful not to want to like grow to that next step, because I've seen people, they're addicted to that growth, that next step. Like if you're thriving and if you're comfortable and you're doing it the right way and where you're at, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're growing the way that you feel you intend, that you want to grow.
I love it.
Gotcha. Hey, one more thing I just want to talk about before we wrap this up. So in your bio, you talked about you working on a book right now. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I got an idea from a book. It was only about a year ago, to be honest. And it was just, we have a great VIP system that we implemented. And it started from reading it from someone else that implemented it, and we've massaged it. And it's been it's been amazing. So so we've been able to like 52x, you know, our investment in it. And it's just a system in regards to nurturing and growing your VIP, which is your your sphere. Just the way people are added to your VIP is you ask them, hey, if you come across someone thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, is there any reason why you wouldn't introduce them to me? Like, nah, Roberto, all right, you're part of the VIP. So we have like a whole drip that start we put them on the smart plan, automatic email, automatic invite to a private Facebook page where we do once a week, we go live, we do birthdays, we do quarterly events, you know, via Taco Tuesdays. You know, we're going to be giving away to teachers, you know, things of that nature that, you know, for supplies and things like that. So it's just a fun, inexpensive, high ROI way of growing your business, because you know that is what Zillow can't take away from us.
Yeah,
right. That is the most important thing. And you know, and I didn't realize it in the beginning because there's like people that know you, like, all right, but there should be a system behind that. Like, how are you able to connect with those people consistently, and how are you growing that, and how are they seeing you? And then obviously like show proof of success, and like, you know, like you want to make sure to educate them so that you're the knowledge broker, right? So that you know what's going on. And we get referrals all the time. You know, we get opportunities all the time. People relocating. Hey, Roberto, you know, and we celebrate them, right? Because what gets celebrated gets repeated, right? Yeah. So it's super important. But the VIP, and then, you know, I think every agent should have that. Like, their book of business should be sacred. You know, they want to grow that, because you could try to, you know, put money in all this other stuff, but like even like the Loken Group, which was one of the top, you know, company real estate teams in the country. Like, I looked at one of their business plans, and it was just talking about like, I think it was like 70% of their business just the Mets, Sphere. That's all VIP. Yeah. You know, I think too many times agents are looking for that, you know, just that one source that covers it all.
Object.
Yeah, that shiny object. Yeah, and it's getting expensive now. It's getting expensive now to like Zillow, with, you know, Zillow and all the, you know, it's a lot more expensive. You know, when I started investing in Zillow, I think I invested in for like 2 or 3 years. You know, it was like, you know, $800, and I got like 20 or 30 leads a month. You know, definitely ain't like that now. It's expensive.
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, man. Listen, you got another one, Maurice?
No, I thought you had another question. You
Listen, there's so many different ways that we could take this, man, but we'll be here for another 2 hours, man. Final thoughts, sir. You have the floor. Any words of wisdom, anything that you would like to encourage our listeners? You have the floor.
Well, I want to first thank both of you guys for doing this. This is real cool. You know, I've been in touch with Maurice for a while, and we haven't really been able to link up. You know, as you know, you probably know now more. You know, like sometimes I have to say no to say yes, to say yes for things, you know, other things. But I love what you guys are doing. You know, you're shedding light on some great agents here in the area, and I'm a big fan of all the agents that you've already had on. And I think it's really important to hear everyone's story. You know, because this is a great industry full of great people, you know, and I think that's I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think really I'll give you the best advice, or the best thing I could tell you, which is not going to be groundbreaking. And I apologize. And that's exactly how I received it, because Alexis Boland, she used to be one of the top agents in the country out in she was in Pensacola. And I remember asking her when I moved to Jacksonville, I'm like, I'm about to move to Jacksonville. I'm about to take over. I'm about to just knock on everyone's door. And I'm going to, you know, I was like, what kind of advice do you give me? She's like, just don't stop learning. And I was so disappointed, but I was like, don't stop learning. Like, what? But honestly, that's what it is. Like, you start reprogramming and, you know, reading and educating and being around bigger, you know, thinkers, and being around, you know, making sure you're around people that are doing things and growing and want to grow through osmosis. You're going to feel that. You're going to be around that, and you want that energy. Right. And I think that, you know, just don't stop learning, don't stop growing, because real estate could be a vehicle, not just for wealth, but just for personal growth and growth in your family. And I think that it's an amazing industry. You know, I'm eternally grateful. So that's what I got to say.
Man, you did it, brother. You did it, sir. We definitely appreciate you. You know, just coming on the show, being real, authentic. You Absolutely. Dropped some major stuff. I got notes. I got to figure out how to put it in my notebook. But just thanks for just coming on here, man. I'm gonna call you because I want to hear more about that the VIP.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I'll lay it all out. I'm an open book. You know, you ever grab coffee or drink with me, I'll tell you everything. You know what I'm saying? So like to me, there's no secrets in this industry, right?
And
and
when you finish the book, we want to make sure that we have an exclusive right here on the show.
I got you.
We're gonna release it. You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
You know what I'm saying? And then we can pull out nuggets out of that book and we can talk all about the book. So we'll bring the link, the whole thing.
Beautiful.
Maybe we can figure out some type of discount code that they can get from the
Real
Talk of Real
Let's
Estate.
do it. Yeah. Oh, I'm all for it. That'd be great. That'd be exciting.
Let's go, man.
10% off. Discount.
Yeah.
Exactly. Adventure discount. Yeah. That's it right there. Hey, man, hey, brother, thank you so much for being on here, man. I know we've talked, like you said, and you've put me off for a while, so I greatly appreciate you finally coming on the show, man.
I'm a big fan. Listen, I'm a big fan of you. I'm a big fan of Josh. I'm a big fan of all you guys out there. You know, and
thank you.
I applaud you guys, everything you guys are doing, the energy you guys have. So I appreciate you guys. Keep on doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you,
man.
Bro.
Appreciate you. So listen, when we'll bring you back onto the show, we'll do a part 2, drop some more nuggets, and we're looking forward to that book, man.
All right. We'll make it happen.
Keep being successful. Keep doing your thing.
I appreciate y'all. Y'all take care. Have a good one.
Peace.
Thanks, bro.
All right, that's it, yo. Till next time, guys. Don't talk about it, be about it. We got a huge show next week. Who's on the show?
Karen Mills.
Yeah, we got to talk about that one. We might have to shift. We might have Megan on the show next week, so we might have to shift that. But we'll talk about that. All right, we'll make it work. We got hitters. We got some hitters. We got 2 events. We're not gonna talk about it now, but we got 2 events.
Sure do.
That's gonna be happening. That I'm very, very excited about. So
absolutely, man.
We got some good stuff, brother.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, go ahead and give your sound off so we can end this broadcast.
All right, guys. Until next week, don't talk about it, be about it. We out. Peace.